I put out a newsletter at the time, went back to the journalism thing. I have gone back and forth quite a bit, a little neurotic sometimes, but that's the way it goes. And I put this out, and Epic takes us to court, and they hand it to John Humble, and they say, is this true? I put all those quotes in. Did you say it? And he says, yes. And they said, how come you've never said this before? And he said, because I have to go out in the field with these guys, and I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe with the Pacific lumber foresters, and I don't feel safe with the state foresters. Okay, this is a club. A lot of them came from this very institution. Another important thing to keep in mind. Right? I hear it's, quote, cleaned up. That's what somebody else used that term to me. It's been cleaned up. You know, and I know that there are some excellent people working here now. In fact, I've worked with them and lectured in their classes, and I know what's going on. So that's really great news. But these guys were part of a club, and a lot of them came out of this institution, especially back in the 60s and 70s. And that was the go-go years, get out the cut. So, going back to the map, I just wanted to illustrate what happened here with basically the ransoming of Headwaters Grove. This is the old growth that existed in early '87. Here are those two timber harvest plans that Epic locked up in court. So the following year, and there's this one that Epic was not able to lock up, 87-427, and then later they came in and took what was left on the north side in 1989. And then in 1988, Maxam submits this 230-acre cut for the middle of the grove. Well, those ones are in litigation, can't be cut here. Well, no, so Epic sues, holds that one up, and prevails. And so they said, well, okay, then maybe we'll just design this one. Look at it, isn't that interesting shape? We're going to penetrate the heart of this grove. And it's really funny, in a way, that's definitely the shape of the timber harvest plan. And it didn't even occur to me until I was outlining this. But I took them right from the timber harvest plan map, and it's like a big fuck you, you know? We're going to ransom this grove, and that's basically what they did. So also at that time, in 1989, the company started cutting this road. I'll go back, you can kind of see it pop up there. In violation of the injunction that's on this timber harvest plan, 87, and it was an extended timber harvest plan. They got a year-long extension with no public notice in any case. Anyway, it was illegal. And Cecilia Landman, one of the great heroes of the story, because she was running Epic along with other people, but she did so much of the legwork, thankless legwork. She drives up there to stop them from cutting this road and gets arrested. You know, it's like, it's totally illegal. But they cut it in. They cut it there it is. They cut a mile into the middle of Headwaters Grove. People call it the Death Road now. They called it a wildlife study trail. Right? And here it is from the air again. You kind of see it there. And this is the end of it right there. That's what it looks like. That's their wildlife study trail. And perhaps not coincidentally, it ends right at Postcard Grove. So about this time, this again is late '89, Judy Berry, who's been working with us since early '88, mostly down in Mendocino County. She's a brilliant, funny, fascinating organizer, thinker, labor supporter. She was a carpenter. She came as a carpenter. And she says, we have to have the mass action. We have to model it on the Mississippi summer protests and bring thousands of people up to the North Woods to protest this awful logging, this illegal logging. And that's a very important part of this, is that almost every timber harvest plan submitted by Pacific Lumber in the Maxam era was illegal, violated the State Forest Practices Act, California Environmental Quality Act, Federal Endangered Species Act, State Endangered Species Act, Port of Columbia Clean Water Act. Massive violations, but you had to sue on every plan. And they know there's no resources for that. And then you're dealing with Maxam and their multi-million-dollar law firm, right? So it's all part of the plan. But illegal. So, okay, in the late '89, I'm kind of done. I'm fried. I'm getting death threats. I've been beat up a couple times. And, you know, it's like the organization is going out the window. Like people are getting a little loosey-goosey in the meetings. Everybody wants to have consensus. You know what a consensus? Like you get 40 people in a circle and nothing happens, right? So, I mean, I appreciate consensus, but when you're trying to get, you know, people up trees and lives are on the line, you want 4 or 5 people who are kind of calling things. They've been doing this for 2 or 3 years. So anyway, just got And we also know it got kind of weird, we know this now, because we were infiltrated. We were infiltrated by the FBI. In 1989, in May, the Arizona Five were busted because Michael Fain, the FBI informant, who decided to get into that group by being the boyfriend, he like totally seduced this woman, and then busted her, you know, as her boyfriend. And he was investigating us, me specifically. I found out in his deposition in the trial that Judy and Daryl brought against the FBI. He was investigating me specifically. But our group was infiltrated, and just like we weren't assassinated like they did the Black Panthers. We were lucky because we were white, or AIM, American Indian Movement. But it was the same type of thing. There was disruption and trying to take us down in whatever way it could. And then, of course, they did try to kill Judy Barrett. We're not sure exactly who, but there's a connection with the atmosphere of violence that was accepted by the authorities. Right? You can get away with whatever you want. And sure enough, as soon as the bomb went off under Judy Barrett's car seat, she was arrested. So in any case, we went forward with Redwood Summer. I decided to stick it out. I'll do the Redwood Summer thing, and my last action was going to be kind of a kickoff to Redwood Summer. It turned out to be a month to the day before the bombing, April 24th of 1990, when we climbed the Golden Gate Bridge. And we were supposed to hang a big banner, but homicidal ironworkers came down and started taking off people's safeties and pushing them down the cable and reaching out to cut safeties. And Larry Evans grabs one guy and holds him because it looks like he's going to cut somebody's safety line. And then we got this guy in the middle of the bridge, and then we get down and we get arrested for resisting arrest. We got a felony resisting arrest, because we tried to keep the ironworkers from killing us. It wasn't even cops, right? So those are all thrown out immediately. The judge is like, oh, God, you guys, get out of my court. Anyway, we got some publicity, and then a month later, Judy and Daryl were bombed. There's obviously a lot to say about this, and I do encourage you to see the movie that Daryl made, but there were a couple of things going on here. One was to kill Judy Barrett, which would have happened had not the blast gone downward. The blast of the pipe bomb, which was wrapped with nails, went downward instead of up. Still, she was severely injured and disabled for life. And Daryl had his cornea scratched with flying glass and both his eardrums were burst. But the other thing was that on the ballot was an initiative to ban clear cutting in California, which would have changed the game entirely. The People's Initiative to ban clear cutting, Louisiana Pacific and Maxam in particular, did not want this. And so the theory behind this is that the bombing, part of it was to link Earth First with this ballot initiative, which lost by a couple of points in November. And that's exactly what people did. A lot of the pundits, you can count on them, right? Oh, they're radical Earth Firsters, and then there's this ballot initiative, and it's all connected, right? And it worked. If that is the case of what happened. So it's a theory at this point. Moving right along, 1991, Pacific Lumber submits a timber harvest plan to cut 237 acres out of the heart of Owl Creek Grove. This is Daryl Turney in 1986 in Owl Creek Grove. That gets epic again, hold it up in court, and it's just a glorious ecosystem. You can see the cutting in the background. This is the early 90s again. But meadows down to Doug fir, down to the redwood, the ecotone. Really a very important marbled murrelet habitat, the second most important on PL land. Well, in June of 1992, first in March of 92, the murrelet was listed as I think it was threatened. I've got endangered here in my notes, but I think it was listed as threatened under the Endangered Species Act. Oh no, endangered under the California Act, later as threatened under the Federal Act. And so in June, Maxam's response was to send logging crews in illegally over a weekend and log as much as they could before they were stopped. They even logged on a Sunday, which was, I think, the first time in modern history that they logged on a Sunday. And then the following Thanksgiving, they did the same thing over Thanksgiving weekend. And so you can see here, this is Owl Creek Grove from the air, and that's where they went in, and you can see that, you can't see that well, but they logged there. In 1994, Dan Hamburg submitted his Headwaters Forest Act. And this is an important part of the puzzle, even though it didn't pass. It passed the House Feinstein blocked it. And we're going to find out why. So that was in 94. In 95, there's a big push to protect all 60,000 acres. We wanted this, in 88, first put out a headwaters forest wilderness proposal to protect 60,000 acres, including all the old groves, virgin groves, and the residual forest in between. And that didn't pan out, but it was resurrected kind of, and you can see these signs. I don't know if you can see them actually, but they say all 60,000 acres. This is Bob Weir playing at a rally in San Francisco. We're really trying to get it up to this. Here's Jerry Brown at the rally. You get both Browns, Willie Brown, Jerry Brown, and of course, Darrell Cherney, Karen Pickett, and Judy Berry all spoke, and Judy was fantastic. Here she is 5 years after being bombed. She can hardly get around, and she told funny stories. She was clear and accurate, and there's some great reportings of her out. So in 96, the largest arrest action ever in the history of environmental activism, single day, more than 1,000 people arrested at the Yager log deck for Pacific Lumber. There was about 8,000 people at the rally in general, but arrested were Bonnie Raitt, and Don Henley, and Cecilia Lamnon, again, one of the heroes of the story. Moving back to the politics, there's obviously a big public move to protect this. But in 1995, at the end of 95, President Clinton convened a little meeting with David Bonderman, who was the Houston-based chair of Continental Airlines, and Richard Blum, who is a business partner of Hurwitz and, very importantly, the husband of Dianne Feinstein. And so what they did was they appointed Feinstein as the lead person for the committee to look into purchasing Headwaters Forest. Meanwhile, by that time, PL had cut its inventory by 3.3 billion board feet, more than half of their inventory in 10 years, and nobody was saying anything about that. And also, what was known by that time was that in 1985, Hammond Jensen Wall and Associates did a survey for Pacific Lumber for Max Sam. Maybe it was just for Pacific Lumber. I actually know. I can't see the date on it. But they determined that Pacific Lumber's forest cannot sustain a doubling of 1985 harvest indefinitely. Remember, they more than doubled it. Continuance of double 85 harvests beyond year 20 will result in liquidation of the forest. And this was well known. So what we got, and moving right along, I'm sorry that I'm going so long here, was in 1999 was finally Headwaters Forest protected 3,000 acres and a 4,000 acre buffer, but the quote lesser cathedrals were not, and none of the residual, and none of Freshwater Creek, none of most of Elk River and the toll, and again, it left out 205,000 acres of very important forest land. But nonetheless, Maxam still got 480 million. None of that went to service the debt, which we're going to get to. I'm actually blowing it. The value of the grove was probably no more than 50 million had the ESA been enforced, and even had it not, it was probably only worth 100 million. Again, none of that 480 million serviced the debt. The tax credits that Maxam earned in that deal was also 500 million. So here, it was $1 billion deal, right? They paid 900 million for the company, liquidated $4 billion, and they got $1 billion, right? And they still had 205,000 acres. Again, 900 million, 45 billion, liquidated. The debt in 06 was 714 million. This is, again, 7 years after the deal. And so the next year they just declared bankruptcy. Right? Meanwhile, the watersheds, Elk River watershed, comprehensively liquidated. Freshwater, comprehensive. And other places too. These are just two examples. And this is what happened, was that the sediment from upstream logging decreased the channel capacity in Elk River by 60% in this relatively short time period. It flooded where it had never flooded before, and with almost no rain. And this is still going on. So again, just want to shout out to Epic. These are some of their suits. Not all of them against Maxam, but almost all of them. And other suits that they joined. And then also, again, as I said, this is a movement, and here's an incomplete list of people who I know, just I know, took part in a lot of these actions, and the litigation, and the support for what the work we were doing, and we're doing the work. A lot of the first names up there were some of the early activists who put their lives on the line, with no recognition or really thanks except from internally from us. They just did it because it was the right thing to do. Somebody else, I don't know who, said, it's amazing what you can get done if you don't need credit. And so I'm trying to give some of these people credit. And some of these people have been noted. You see some names up there. This is what it takes. So I'm just going to go very quickly to the fact that we do have some protected redwood, and I'm thankful, deeply thankful that it's there. And I think a lot of my ability to pursue redwood protection is because I saw what was at stake before even knowing about Maxam and Pacific Lumber. So that last shot was Humboldt Redwood State Park. Here is Prairie Creek State Park. This was the first state park purchased except for Big Basin. This is Del Norte Coast Redwood State Park, Redwood National Park, and there's also, of course, the ocean at Redwood National Park, which I'm very thankful for. And I'm also, shout out to the city of Arcata, 2,300 acres, very well managed, one of the best natural resource programs in the country. You see yourself? This is an MBA class not that long ago. And then Big Basin. I go back to Big Basin because it was the first significant redwood preservation. And I was there in March, and I went to UC Santa Cruz. And I went to Big Basin a lot. And I think that in 84 and 85, when I went to Big Basin a lot, and then by 86, I was immersed in the Maxam thing. I think because Big Basin was there, and I went to it and I absorbed it, that is part of what provided me with the impetus and perhaps, I don't know if you call it clarity, but the ability to just jump out of my skin, my life, and to jump into this fray with the total unknown, because I understood that what was at stake in my heart. And it was because, I think in large part, because I was in a large redwood ecosystem quite a bit. And so I'm thankful for those people who had that clarity back in the 1880s to start